Whenever I see a stealth game in first-person perspective, I always do this thing where I lower my expectations. And I lower my expectations because I am a long-time fan of the original Thief games. When someone says first-person stealth, Thief is pretty hard to ignore, and when you're comparing a game to Thief, that game is usually in trouble. But I'm happy to say that Filcher surprised me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Filcher and why I think it's great, and why I also think after you're finished with this video, you should just go and buy it. If you haven't heard of Filcher, then why aren't you following me on Twitter? That's number one. But number two, I wouldn't be surprised because it had the tragic misfortune of coming out on the same day as Deathloop. It's hardly surprising that a tiny stealth game got kind of buried under the hype of Deathloop, but Filcher doesn't deserve to be buried, and it doesn't deserve to be ignored. For me, Filcher is a perfect blend of Thief and Trilby, the Art of Theft. The basic premise is that you are a master thief called Spory who has been trained under a criminal organisation, and she wants to go and strike out on her own. She's done taking orders and kind of wants to kick back, relax, break into a few expensive places and nab all their stuff. The plot of the game is simple, straightforward, it has a few twists to keep you engaged, but I have to say that the outstanding feature of the narrative for Filcher is the way in which it's presented. It has these graphic novel panels presented in stark black and white. While you don't have voiced roles for any of the characters, or any of the NPCs for that matter, every character has a distinct voice in the written dialogue. There's also an attention to detail with the sound design, because you get these little sound effects that really help to bring the film noir atmosphere into the game. Mission briefs are fairly simple. It's a wall of text, and you have some photographs to look at to review your mission and what you need to do. It's very easy to look at all of this and imagine how much more engaging it would have been to have a voiced character doing a mission brief, but it's consistent with the way the story's told in these graphic novel cutscenes where you're reading the dialogue. Spory's voice and personality are very clear and present in the mission text, so I think it works really well. One of the first things that you'll notice about Filcher on an aesthetic level is the choice to use 2D sprites for NPCs and the loot that you're going to steal. Indeed, the weapons and tools you're using are 2D sprites as well. I can't deny that this was a bit jarring to me at first, but it's something that I quickly adjusted to. And there's something nice about just having these very fat pixel assets. Even though they're not 3D models, they have impact, they have something tangible about them. And for me at least, that's just a testament to how good Filcher feels to play. You can pick up bodies and move them, they feel like they have some weight to them, you move more slowly and you have this nice bump as you throw them into a shadowy corner. What I will say is that the NPC growling, while it communicates the state of awareness that the AI has of your presence, it runs the risk of taking players out of the world that you've constructed, because these aren't zombies, they are people, and people express themselves with words and not hums and clicks and growls. Everything else about the way Filcher is presented should feel very familiar to anyone who's touched the original Thief trilogy. We have a visibility gem, we have noise levels that your character makes when they're walking on different surfaces, we have enemies that make lots of noise so we know where they are and where they're coming from, and we have a whole bunch of tools designed around modifying the game space or taking enemies out. I should say, it is entirely possible to kill enemies in this game, but the tools you have are all non-lethal tools. The most immediate solutions for neutralising enemies that you will have are a dart gun and a blackjack. A blackjack is fairly self-explanatory. You get close to an enemy, you knock them out. A dart gun is a beginner's tool for Filcher. It fires shots one at a time, it takes a little while to reload, and as soon as an enemy is hit with one of those shots, they know instantly where you are, and they will chase you down, and they will start to shoot you with their guns. So that makes the dart gun a very positional beginner's tool to use. If you're going to use it, you have to bear in mind where you are, where enemies are, and think about ways you can basically hide until they collapse unconscious, because each dart takes a little time to take effect. You also have access to flashbangs, which can be deployed when enemies spot you to give yourself time to run away, and you have moss spores, which can create a carpet on loud surfaces for you to walk on, a la Thief's moss arrows. Probably my least favourite tool out of the arsenal is the noisemaker, these weird little, what are they, ducks? Geese? Penguins? I don't know. Well, whatever they are, you throw them and enemies run towards the source of noise, and then they do a search of the area because they're on alert. Rounding off the list of tools available, you have lockpicks, which you can use to pick open some but not all doors within a mission. For less cooperative doors and locks, you'll have to go looking for keys, and those can also be found on your gear wheel. And a flashlight, which is very useful for scoping things you might not be able to see in dark corners. Obviously, try not to use it when enemies are looking at you, because you immediately become super visible. The tools are one thing, we also need to talk about movement. For the most part, Filcher embraces the Thief style of gameplay where you spend a great deal of your time crouching. It also relies heavily upon a slide mechanic where, if you're moving at pace and you hit crouch, your character slides silently across noisy surfaces. And this really comes into play when you start getting better at Filcher and going for those difficult runs where you're trying to ghost your way through. One thing that might bother players is there is no ability to climb over obstacles in Filcher. You can jump, but you can't mount objects that are taller than you. There are maybe a couple of instances in certain levels where I think this might have been useful, but it's not so big a problem that I think, oh, it's such a shame that the game doesn't include this. No, the levels have been built around no climbing being required. But here's the key question, is the stealth any good? Are the stealth systems within Filcher built to withstand the scrutiny of seasoned stealth game veterans? I can't answer that universally. Stealth is a thing that very much either clicks or it doesn't. For my part, absolutely. The stealth systems in Filcher, at least from a standpoint of being able to get visually detected, are immediately understandable. Enemies can perceive you even if the visibility gem is just a little bit brighter than completely black. One detail I quite liked is that enemies will detect you visually, but they won't confirm you're there until they run towards where you're located and find you, basically. If you get spotted and you can dash around a corner, you can dash around that corner and find a hiding spot, and enemies will search that area, but they won't officially have seen you. Same with audio. If they hear you, they will run to the spot where they heard your footsteps or whatever, and if you're there for them to find, they will shoot you. But if you can successfully hide and mask your presence, they'll search for a while, and then they'll give up and go back to their patrols. You'll know for sure if you've been detected and an enemy knows exactly where you are because you'll hear a heartbeat sound effect. A practical advantage of having 2D sprites as enemies is that you know the angles at which you are visible to them. With 3D models, you're not always sure to what degree the vision cone extends. It should be noted that Filcher has cameras and they have a field of view, but that field of view is denoted by a green light. So again, this communicates with the player very clearly at what points they are visible to NPCs and enemy devices. On the audio front, it's a little bit more difficult to know what you can get away with. There are times when I stepped on tiled floors, which are the loudest floor you can possibly step on, and I thought that an enemy should have heard me, but apparently they didn't. Other times, when I thought I was being quiet, enemies suddenly made noises like they'd heard me. Overall though, I am very happy with Filcher's stealth systems. Everything feels clearly communicated to players, and I didn't have any trouble adjusting to Filcher's gameplay. As for the missions themselves, there's a wide variety of locations, scenarios, and objectives. Each mission location, though relatively small, has its own backstory, its own personality, and characters who dwell in it. You can read diaries and notes from people who live and work in these places. And again, this ties into what I was talking about earlier with each character having a distinct voice. They exist in these missions too. You sometimes just get snippets of them, but nevertheless this really contributes to your immersion in a corrupt, morally grey, detective film noir world. My personal favourite missions in Filcher are the shipping yards, which is a clear reference in my mind at least to Thief 2's shipping and receiving mission, and the Swordfish restaurant, which is just a very tense infiltration job where you have a lighthouse that's constantly revolving and shining a light on the docks area where the restaurant is situated, so you have to really watch how you're sneaking past guards and patrols in that area. If I have one significant criticism of Filcher, it's the complete absence of a mid-game save system. Now, there's nothing here that's going to take you more than 30 to 40 minutes to get through, depending on how many times you have to restart because you completely messed up. Nevertheless, I would argue that just for the sake of accessibility, it would have been beneficial to have a system where players can save their game in the middle of a mission. Killing the quick save is a noble endeavour. You kind of need to provide a backup for people who might need it or just want it. One of the things I've said about stealth game design before is that players hate solving the same puzzles over and over again. In Filcher, if you completely mess something up towards the end of a level, you have to restart that mission from scratch and go through all of the stuff that you've just been through just to get to the point at which you messed up, and it could have been the smallest thing. I wandered off the edge of a pier on the Swordfish level I just mentioned, and that just, I died. It killed my progress completely and I had to restart the whole mission. And that was after I had finished the main objective. I personally don't have too much of a problem with that, but I can see other people getting really frustrated with it. And frankly, they'd have a right to be frustrated. Anyway, this is a really minor point. I don't think that it impacts the game experience overall too much if you're prepared to run with it. If it didn't bother you when you had to restart the whole mission in Trilby, The Art of Theft, then it's probably not going to bother you in Filcher. This is an indie stealth game that is absolutely worth day one purchase as far as I'm concerned. Not only did I enjoy playing through it and cheesing the AI and using my dart gun to make things as easy as possible on myself the first time round, I'm in the process of going back through each mission and trying to get sneakier ranks. There's a whole ranking system within this game where you only get the top rank if you get all the loot, find all the secrets, don't knock anyone out, don't get detected, and don't take any damage. There's a whole list of criteria. I'll put it up on screen. Not only have I played Filcher through from beginning to end, I want to go back and get better at it. There aren't many stealth games out there that make me want to do this. Filcher is very, very good. It deserves to do well. It had a bit of bad luck coming out the same day as Deathloop. Filcher is engaging, intriguing, immersive, and most importantly, it's smart. It teaches you how to be smart. It throws you in the dark for every mission. No objective markers, just shadows. And for a game about being a master thief, that's everything I could ask for. Thank you for watching.